Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I want to welcome you all here today for an announcement which has been much talked about. The speculation, some of which has been massively uninformed, ends today. As party chairman and the Newry Armagh candidate, I am delighted to be part of a fantastic lineup of principled, dedicated and articulate unionists. Many of them I have known for quite some time. Others are more recent additions to the TUV ranks. All of them are committed to standing by their promise to the electorate. TUV is, as the sign of the lectern before us declares, a party you can trust. Trust is a key issue in this election. We have always been clear. We have always spelled out the truth about the sea border and its consequences for the Union. Others betrayed that trust, placed in them to the Unionist electorate, and sold something which even themselves now admit was a lie. So who can you trust? Those who tried to mislead you, or those who told you the truth? Many will conclude that the attempts of the DUP to steal the TUV's clothes on the mouth of an election has happened once too often. As the polls show, growing numbers feel that they should go with the real thing, a party which calls it as it is and which you can trust. Now to introduce our candidates and say something about the TUV Reform UK approach to the election, I'm going to invite our party leader, Jim Allister, to address you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon and welcome. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a roll call election for Unionists and for Democrats. Unionists and Democrats who have not given up on the union with Great Britain. Unionists and Democrats who repudiate a partitioning border in the Irish Sea. Unionists and Democrats who reject being governed by foreign laws we don't make and can't change. Unionists who will not rest until Article 6 of our Acts of Union is reinstated. And Unionists who refuse to take the knee to either EU rule or Sinn Féin rule in this province. With the DUP having to admit that it didn't tell the truth about Stormont deal, only TUV Reform UK candidates are those who stand firm on these key constitutional issues. By their vote, each and every elector will declare where they stand, and it's to give them that choice and opportunity that we are here today. And every voter will now make that choice in the knowledge that the DUP lied to them about the DUP Donaldson deal. It did not, as claimed, remove the Irish Sea border. It did not stem the flow of EU law. It did not restore our place within the United Kingdom. And now the man whose fingerprints are all over the Donaldson deal, Gavin Robinson, admits as much. What does that convey on the key questions of trust and judgment? Voters are entitled to have honesty from their politicians. They certainly are entitled to honesty from those that seek their votes. Yet, in recent days, the DUP was shamed into admitting that they had lied to the people of Northern Ireland. And that does raise a fundamental question of trust and of who each unionist voter should trust on the 4th of July. Those who sought to mislead the people in February do not deserve the votes of the people in July. It's as simple as that. A real distinction between TUV Reform UK and both the Ulster Unionist Party and the DUP is that they, sadly, have, through their operation of and resulting support for the protocol, accepted that the union, as we know it and need it, is gone. That never again, under the protocol, would Northern Ireland be a full and integral part of the United Kingdom, but rather that we should be a condominium, part road by UK laws and part road by foreign EU laws. That's what accepting the Windsor Framework and the dishonest command paper means in constitutional reality. Partitioned and driven apart by an Irish sea border and subjected to foreign EU laws, reunification of the United Kingdom and equal citizenship is the overriding demand of TUV Reform UK. This nation needs to be reunified. Some might aspire to unification of Ireland. We demand the reunification of the United Kingdom. And we, through our partnership with Reform UK, embrace pan-unionism across this union, believing that for too long Northern Ireland has been treated as a place apart. And many unionist politicians, to their shame, have indulged in parochialism, even to the point of joining Sinn Féin in Brit bashing. The UK is our country. We want to play a full and equal part, caring about immigration, caring about defence, caring about the UK's place in the world. For that reason, the TUV Reform UK alignment offers involvement in national politics, taking a stand on key issues like protecting our borders, reversing the economic destruction of blind allegiance to net zero, and repudiating the woke agenda on transgenderism. But our overriding mission is to restore our union, so damaged by the protocol and the ineptitude of rollover unionism. And on the 4th of July, in 5 weeks' time, we invite unionists across Northern Ireland to answer the union's call by voting TUV Reform UK. And in pursuit of that, I now present to you our TUV Reform UK candidates. Just before doing so, I wish to comment on the absence of a candidate in Upper Bann. TUV made it plain at the start of this year that if there was a risk of a Sinn Féin winning a then-held unionist seat, then we would calibrate our approach accordingly. That is why Upper Bann is the one unionist seat we have decided not to contest. The relative strength of Carla Lockhart's stance contributes to this decision, but the compelling reason was not to assist a Sinn Féin victory. We realise that that decision will disappoint many TUV Reform UK supporters in that constituency, but we believe that on this occasion it is in the interests of the greater good. In Fermanagh and South Tyrone, we sought to maximise the opportunity to regain the seat through an agreed non-party candidate. Indeed, our association in Fermanagh identified such a suitable candidate. Sadly, that uniting move was vetoed. However, in keeping with the established tradition in that constituency, we have decided we will not contest that seat. Here then are our candidates for the general election. Starting in the constituency where we meet today, South Antrim, we have local livestock farmer and breeder Mel Lucas. There he's out here. In East Antrim, we have Councillor Matthew Warwick, renowned Ulster Scots expert, and someone whose council constituency, a significant part of it, has been moved with the boundary changes into East Antrim. In North Antrim, I will stand. Moving to Belfast, former paratrooper John Ross will be the anti-protocol voice in East Belfast. In North Belfast, Councillor David Clark will stand. In West Belfast, our party secretary, Anne McClure, will be our standard bearer. And in South Belfast and Middown, I'm delighted to announce that the DUP's former Director of Policy, Dr. Dan Boucher, will stand for TUV Reform UK. In Lagan Valley, Lorna Smith, former servicewoman, will do battle for TUV Reform UK. And in adjacent South Down, former MLA Jim Wells will return to the fray. In the North West, our party Vice Chairman, Alistair Kyle, will stand in East Londonderry. Glenn Moore will be our standard bearer in Mid-Ulster. In Newry and Armagh, our party chairman, Councillor Keith Radcliffe, will fight for TUV Reform UK. And finally, for now, but certainly not least, I'm delighted that my deputy leader, Councillor Ron McDowell, will stand in Strangford. That leaves West Tyrone and Foyle, and we hope, before nominations close, to present candidates in those constituencies as well, which would make a total of 15. It is only the votes for this team which will truly count against the protocol. I'm now going to ask Dr. Boucher, whom we're delighted has joined us not just in the party, but as a candidate, to come forward and explain both why he is standing and why, and to outline our view of a suitable replacement for the iniquitous protocol. Dr. Boucher.
Well, thank you very much indeed, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great privilege for me to stand before you today, not only as a TUV reform member, but as the TUV reform candidate for Belfast South and Mid Down for this general election. Some people love to say to me, will you stop talking about the Windsor framework? You may be obsessed about constitutional questions, but we live in the real world. Well, you know what? I live in the real world too. The questions regarding the Windsor framework are actually intensely practical, impacting many and in some cases all aspects of life. They may not have negatively affected you yet, but they are highly likely to at some point. During lockdown, I could not get to a dentist. And for the first time in my life, I had to have 2 teeth extracted because the dental care that I needed, I could not receive. One of the implications of the protocol is that on the 1st of January 2025, in just over half a year, it is proposed by the EU that the use of amalgam fillings will be banned. The British Dental Association, in its evidence to the Assembly in March, said that this would have a disastrous effect on NHS dentistry in Northern Ireland, because funding NHS dentists receive at present barely covers amalgam fillings and could not possibly cover the alternatives that are so much more expensive and indeed so much more costly to apply. They cited one dentist who said, and I quote, "Increase in expenses and the ban on amalgam are the perfect storm. I don't know any dentist who will be able to deliver any NHS work next year under these circumstances. NHS dentistry is about to collapse," close quote. And their projection was a significant increase in tooth extractions, which made me think. Now, of course, it is possible that the EU might step back from the brink, and this may not happen. The difficulty, however, is that we are in the intolerable position where legislators from a foreign parliament, who are answerable to their constituents and not to us, will be making a decision that could place NHS dental services in Northern Ireland in jeopardy. No self-respecting people can accept such an arrangement in 2024. What those of us who wish to continue being part of the United Kingdom need now is a party that has the political, the economic and the constitutional competence to understand how to get out of this mess. I have come to the sad conclusion that while there are many wonderful people in the DUP, that it includes some people who have always believed and who continue to believe that the protocol presents something of an economic opportunity. This means that all too often the party has tried to lead, facing in 2 directions at the same time, with very unfortunate consequences. A great example of this was exhibited on Wednesday, when the party both sought to distance itself from safeguarding the union, but then chose as its new leader the remaining DUP parliamentarian most closely associated with negotiating that deal. In his comments, he sought to distance himself from the safeguarding union deal which he had so recently celebrated, central to which, of course, is the application of EU law and the Irish Sea border, by rejecting both, but then going on to claim that the Stormont break was a significant achievement. The Stormont break is not an achievement to be celebrated, ladies and gentlemen, or to be banked. At first glance, it confirms that in 300 areas of law, we can no longer stand for election to make the laws to which we are subject. Instead, we have to make do with the second-class right the right to stand for election to try and block laws that a foreign parliament has already made for us. But it is worse than that. If the brake is pulled, the EU can object, and then the decision will go to international arbitration in the event that international arbitration overrules us. Rather than cementing in our second-class citizenship, the brake will simply cement in the negation of our citizenship. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the procedure that applies to amalgam fillings. The extraordinary thing about the protocol is that it seeks to disenfranchise 1.9 million people completely unnecessarily, in that there is an alternative, mutual enforcement, which provides a solution that avoids a hard border without disenfranchising a single person. This affords unionism the opportunity to publicly point out to the EU 27 member states and to the UK government that in a context where there are two ways of managing the border, one of which involves the shame of the biggest disenfranchisement operation of modern times, while the other avoids this ignominy, it would be and is utterly shameful to insist on the approach that involves our mass disenfranchisement. It also affords us the opportunity to appeal to the sense of fair play, not in the UK government, but in the people of Great Britain, who continue to enjoy the right to stand for election to make all the laws to which they are subject, considering this a constitutional minimal dignity which they would never countenance sacrificing in a month of Sundays. It was this absurd injustice that spoke to me as someone living in Wales and moved me to come to Northern Ireland, and I believe that there are many others who will stand with their fellow citizens in Northern Ireland if fully acquainted with the extraordinary injustice meted out upon us. The DUP has failed to embrace this solution, failed to embrace these opportunities, and I am now delighted to be in a party that, having formed its strategic alliance with Great Britain through Reform UK, will now rise to this challenge. Next week, we mark the 80th anniversary of D-Day and the liberation of Europe, in which Northern Ireland played such a critical role. Northern Ireland was the first place in the UK, and indeed the first place in Europe, to receive American troops preparatory to D-Day. And the Royal Ulster Rifles was the only regiment to send in 2 battalions on D-Day to secure the restoration of constitutional democracy in Europe. How extraordinary, then, that the EU, led by France and Germany, should single out Northern Ireland for the unique indignity of partial disenfranchisement. How could the UK government have let this happen? There are many arguments on our side that we must now deploy as we together, all facing in the same direction, seek to remove this gross injustice and humiliation from Northern Ireland and indeed the United Kingdom as a whole.